Welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to be looking at the nature of planned change. Now, change management is a field unto itself. We looked at a few of the elements last week, but today we're going to look at a few models of planned change. Change is something that is very difficult. Very few organizations are able to really affect substantial change because of the dynamics of it. So let's talk about planned change today as we go into Chapter 2. Well, welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to be in Chapter 2, the nature of planned change. Now, as your book indicates, and as you see here in the slide, there are different ways of changing the way that organizations interact and operate. Now, there was a guy named Kurt Lewin who developed what we see here as a three-step change model, and it's revolutionary. And it was also seminal because no one else had really talked about a formal, systematic approach to change before Lewin. So Lewin proposed that change should take place in 3 stages. And as you see here, the first stage is unfreezing. Unfreezing means that we prepare the workers, employees, for change. And the way of doing that is communication, talking about the need for change. For instance, if you are in an organization that may be lacking in the industry, in technology, or some type of process, part of the way that you can get your employees behind the change is to tell them, listen, this involves your paycheck. If you don't change, or if we don't change as an organization, we may fall way behind and lose our profits to the competition. Whatever it takes, ethically and morally, to prepare and to motivate the workers for change, that's what happens. That's what we should be doing. Now, once we have done this, we move towards the intended change, and this is done through training, encouragement. We can go and offer incentives once we have trained them and all of that to get them to move toward and execute the desired behaviors. Once those desired behaviors are in place, then we want to make those new behaviors permanent, and that's what's called refreezing. And it's kind of like, I guess, an ice cube where you want to melt away those old behaviors and habits. You want to try to create a mold that is appropriate and directed towards your goals, and then you want to refreeze those current behaviors. And that's done through reinforcement, either positive or negative. Sometimes, unfortunately, to make sure people are doing what they are supposed to be doing now, you have to make examples of those that refuse to change. And there are going to be those who will not want to change. They'll resist the change every step of the way, and unfortunately sometimes the only remedy for that is to dismiss them, terminate them, and make examples out of them so that others will know that you're serious about the change. But you need to refreeze it. If not, or you need to refreeze the behavior. If not, then what we call extinction takes place. Now, extinction occurs when the new behaviors are not reinforced properly, and as a result of that, they go back to their original behaviors. This was highlighted in a study that had nothing to do with employees, but some dogs. You might have heard the name Ivan Pavlov. Pavlov trained his dogs to salivate when he rang a bell. And the way he did that was to ring a bell and put meat in front of them. And once they heard that bell, they were just accustomed to eating that meat. They knew that the bell and the meat were tied together. And after a while, he could just ring the bell and they would salivate. And after a while, he started taking the meat away. and he would ring the bell but not give them any meat. And they reverted back to their old behaviors of not salivating because they had just gotten used to the bell ringing and no meat being there. So that's called extinction. When the lack of reinforcement prevents them from being or hinders them from being able to take on and keep the new behaviors, and as such, they go back to the old habits. So we want to unfreeze. We want to move toward the desired behavior, and we want to refreeze those desired behaviors through reinforcement and rewards and sometimes punishment. Now, action research, as you see in the textbook here, is a little bit different. We want to take observations and things that we see in the workplace. We want to consult with those who are in the know, and we want to come up with desired behaviors. So we're going to gather data, and we're going to make a preliminary diagnosis on what could be the problem. We're going to get feedback to the client or the group, and then we're going to diagnose the problems. Now, this is coming from direct observation in the workplace. We're not hypothesizing a broad scope of organizations and things that may or may not influence them. We are looking at problems within our organization, and we're taking action on it through research. So we diagnose the problem, and then as a group and the client or the consultant, we come together and form an action plan, and we take action on it. And then we gather data after the action to see how the plan and the action was able to rectify or take care of that problem. And the way that we know that is through feedback. So you see just a continuous looping of diagnosing, taking action, looking at the after report, and then through the feedback, going back or continuing on with the action that was taken. Now, the positive model is a little different. What we see the other two models looking at is a deficit type of approach to research. In other words, they look at problems. The first two, the action research and the three-step change model, those two look at ways of taking action once a problem has been identified. Positive model looks towards the future. They're not looking at what's going wrong. They look at what we're doing right, and then we're planning change around that. So what we do is ask ourselves, what are we doing right? What is the best, or what are the best practices? And then we discover themes of those best practices. And then we envision, as you see here, a preferred future. Knowing what we do well, how can we make it better? What type of organization, if we were not hindered by anything, what type of organization with our strengths and our positive points, what could we do with this organization? And then we design and we create a future for that organization. So it's not necessarily, or it's not really what we're doing wrong, it's what we're doing right and ways of making it better, figuring out those ways, and turning the organization into a continuous forward-looking type of organization. And then you see the continuous change model. And this is done through discovering what's going on, designing programs, tailoring it to the organization and the issue, and then assessing the outcomes. It's not very difficult, but it is something that we have to stay on top of, more or less. You've probably heard that term, continuous improvement. And that's what we're looking here, as a continuous change, trying to improve upon what we have done. Now, folks, today this is going to be necessary because we are looking at an environment where diversity, technology, innovation, All of these things have come into play, and it has forced us to not be able to ever get comfortable with where we're at. We're always looking for ways of being able to leverage what we are doing and making it better. That's going to be the constant challenge that we face today in business, and creating a culture, which means that we're going to have to leverage development, being used to change and making change a part of the norm are going to be necessary elements in order to be able to survive in today's dynamic, competitive, technically diversity, globalized economy that we're in. That's what it's going to take to survive. Now, the continuous change model, just to keep going a little bit on it, it does address those dynamic changes that we just talked about. It prioritizes multiple changes simultaneously. You don't necessarily have to look at one thing and say, okay, we're going to work on that today. It coordinates and kind of triages what's necessary for the organization to be able to move and capitalize on opportunities. Customized and more fluid change initiatives. Yes, it allows for you to be able to go and to arrange and organize change initiatives that are designed specifically for departments, for units, for groups, and for the organization as a whole. And it builds these complex and continuous change capabilities into the organization. A lot of organizations today just can't change. They don't know how to change, or they don't have the resources or the knowledge in order to change. Well, once it's built into the culture, a change mentality, and you are familiar with the dynamics of change and how to incorporate, whether it's the three-stage model or action research or the positive change model or continuous change model, these will enable you to be able to grasp and to take advantage of all of the opportunities for change that will help you outcompete your competitor. Now, there's similarities and differences of the planned change models. The similarities are that the change preceded by diagnosis or preparation. Yes, you have to diagnose and prepare on both of these types. You apply behavioral science knowledge, which is, as we saw last week, the social sciences, psychology, sociology, anthropology, and some of the people-oriented sciences. Stress involvement of organization members. There's going to be stress either way. There's going to be pressure placed on people, not only to be innovative, but to get out of their comfort zone and to change. And then recognize the role of a consultant. The consultant is important. Now, the consultant is not the catch-all. The consultant will come in, and the consultant can see things from the outside looking in. You have an intimate knowledge of that organization. So it takes both the consultant from the outside and you on the inside working together to navigate through all of the complexities that go along with change. Now, differences, you have general versus specific activities, which is, you can take a look at the three-stage model. They may look at trying to change the face of the organization, whereas with positive change, you may be looking at one specific good thing that you're doing and leveraging it. Centrality of consultant role. You have the ability for the consultant or the authority of the consultant to come in and be the authority, or they can be a part of the group. Problem solving versus social constructionism. Are you here to fix a problem? And if you are, then you may want to look at the deficit central type of change models. If not, if you're trying to change the whole face of the organization, you may try more of a social constructionism, which is maybe the positive or the continuous change model and so forth. Well, today we took a look at a couple of models when it comes to planned change and some of the reactive and proactive models, such as the positive emphasis on change and how we can be more proactive when it comes to change and leveraging the things that we're doing right. Well, tomorrow we'll go ahead and pursue a little bit deeper Chapter 2. So you have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow.